Nice day.
Gorgeous outside today. Perfect weather for getting all kinds of stuff done, which we did. It's been a long day.
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We're going to talk construction.
We've always thought that, they talk about, like food being hauled 9 million miles to, yes, this apple's from Chile. Yes, this, no, we prefer to eat seasonally. And we also prefer to build sort of regionally too. We've always thought that that was a great idea. Most of the time, if you look at the buildings that exist in a building in an area, especially the older ones, the ones that were built like in the 1800s and early 1900s, they're uniquely suited. For instance, in an area with heavy snow, you will not find a lot of flat roofs. That's because flat roofs collapse when you get heavy snow. And even modernly, we have seen multiple flat roofs collapse in heavy snowstorms. So we think that if you're in an area that has a resource, you should try to use it.
Yeah, so when we first bought our place here and we were getting ready to do construction, we looked at many different kinds of construction techniques. We examined straw bale houses because that was very attractive. We looked at adobe because we'd both worked with adobe in the past and we knew what it's like. We looked at earth bags. We looked at continuous bag earth bags. We looked at insulated formed concrete.
Right.
We looked at timber frame.
Right.
We looked at stick building. We looked at every manner of construction that you can think of.
No, well, we didn't look at the stand-up slabs that they use for factory buildings in California. We didn't look at that.
I hate to tell you, I did look at that.
Okay, well, they wouldn't have the expertise around here.
Well, and that's really a key point. When Irene says they wouldn't have the expertise around here, when we started building 16 years ago, there was a real shortage of people who could do timber frame construction, which was ultimately what we actually wanted to do.
Right.
So instead,
we did stick build.
We designed a slab. We designed the utilities that needed to be in the slab. And then we designed the actual stick-built house that we're in now.
We both have experience with basic woodworking and all that sort of stuff. I've had a basic home building class that included both stick-built and post and beam, and we had hoped to do post and beam, but we could not find for love nor money anyone who could do any kind of construction like that around here. It just wasn't available.
Now, when Irene says she took a course, it wasn't just any course. It was a course from
It was a home builders class at Shelter Institute in Maine.
Shelter Institute in Bath, Maine at the time. They've moved on to Wiscasset now. But
they were still Wiscasset, Maine now.
They were really the go-to source for timber frame construction at that time.
And they still are in the Maine area. They just have a huge amount of expertise, literally generations at this point, because Daddy has kind of mostly retired and the kids have taken it on, and they're not young anymore. So they are not teenagers. So I think they have teenagers of their own.
So let's talk some about building materials, the actual structural characteristics of building materials. Most people don't realize that there's different grades of wood, and each of those different grades of wood has a different amount of strength. So there's engineering tables that are pre-calculated for you that will tell you how long a span you can use with a 2x6, a 2x8, a 2x10, a 2x12, whatever kind of standard lumber. But there's one big gotcha there. And that is the logs that those pieces of wood are cut from have to be graded by a lumber grader. They go through and they say, here's how good this wood is.
If you would actually read, say you went to a big box store and you were actually to pick up a piece of wood there, it would tell you what the wood was, and it would also give you a grade. And to be honest, also a lot of times at the big box stores, the word crap comes to mind.
No, we talked about crap yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, poor quality, how's that? We did not go to a big box store. We went to an actual lumber yard. And when the building inspector did come by, and we invited him in to look at stuff.
Now, he actually wasn't allowed to come in and look, but we invited him in because, well, I thought we could coerce him into coming in, and he looked, and
he was blown away. He was shocked at the quality of the wood that we had, and he was also shocked that we were putting extra ties in and stuff like that. And we're like, we're planning to live here for the rest of our lives, so we'd like it to stay up and safe. And yeah, he was blown away. He had never seen lumber that good. So we told him where we bought it, because it's just a place, you know, it's no farther away than the big box store is, but we got lumber packages out of them. We said, okay, we want all our ceilings are 10 feet tall, so we want 10 foot, and our house is not 2x4s, it's 2x6s, because we wanted that extra room for insulation. And we got the 2x6s pre-cut at 10 feet, so there was literally no waste from the walls. And, you know, then we got the trusses through them too. I mean, they did a gorgeous job. I would definitely recommend their wood.
But you know, there's kind of a romantic idea about, I'm going to go buy a piece of land, it's going to have trees on it, and I'm going to cut them down, I'm going to mill my own lumber, I'm going to build a house with that lumber.
Yeah, people who know anything about wood can do that.
Well, there's only one problem. It's still not graded wood.
No, it's not. But it depends on where you live. I mean, especially when you're doing owner-builder things, a lot of times you can get away with it. For instance, you know, you live in Alaska, you live in the middle of a forest, you can build a log cabin. They're not going to complain about that. If we had stayed in Maine and built a house up there, it would have been post and beam, and we would have either milled our own, or if we needed additional, we would have gotten it from a local sawmill. And the local sawmill would have had graded wood, because those trees would have had to be graded. If you have ever built a shelf out of wood and thought, oh yes, this 1/2-inch shelf will be just fine to span this 4-foot length, and then I'll put books on it. And within a month, it's like this.
So there's all kinds of engineering specifications for how you build your foundation, how deep you need to make it, what kind of material you need to make it out of. And all of that is based on the soil type in your area. But then when you get ready to build a building on top of it, well, let's talk about one of the alternatives. I was pretty serious about doing some earth bag construction here, and about 4 or 5 years ago, and I have the earth bags for it. But I decided not to, and the reason for it is very simple. In order to have a really quality product, you need to know how much clay, how much sand, how much other stuff is in your soil. And then you may need to add adjuncts to it, like Portland cement. You know, dirt is nice, dirt is money cheap, but labor expensive.
Right, and that was one of the reasons, you know, when we were starting here, we were like, okay, these are the house types we're looking at. This is the level of expertise we have locally. This is our level of expertise. Okay. We could have done post and beam by ourselves if we could have gotten the wood.
And if we had all the time, because at the time I was still
working
full time.
Right. So he was only here once in a while. So that wasn't much of a choice. And building them by myself didn't sound like a lot of fun.
Well, the problem is when you start looking at the size of walls and things like that that we chose for our home, it's a lot of weight. And some of these wall sections that I put up with a couple of guys took all 3 of us to stand the walls up, because it's 2x6s. It's 10 feet tall, it had a lot of headers, it had a lot of things in it that added weight. And it was not balanced well, because you only need a certain amount of wood on the bottom and you need all the rest of the wood up at the top, and that's not good.
Right. Well, and you actually designed the foundation for this.
I designed the foundation,
He did a huge amount of research, because we wanted this to be an energy efficient house. Now, a lot of times when people move to some place anywhere in the American Southwest, they think, oh, I don't need to make it energy efficient because coal is not going to be a problem. Well, first of all, where we live, cold is a problem. But you know what? Heat is just as bad a problem. So when I see somebody down south going, oh, a single pane glass is fine, I'm like, oh, you are going to so regret that later.
Now, there's some other things to talk about here, and that is there are plenty of alternative building materials.
Mm-hmm.
You can get engineered drawings for a house. Now, we didn't do that. I did all the engineering calculations, but I did not get what's called a wet signed copy of the blueprints because
We didn't need them.
at that time we didn't need to have an engineered approved structure. Well, now in our county, if you're going to build something and you're going to build it so that you're not going to regret it later, you have to have engineered drawings.
Yes.
Now, you'll hear some other YouTubers talk some other places in Arizona. We're in northern Arizona, up in the cold country. There are people who live down south, and you'll hear them talk about opt out. Well, the sad fact of building life is that most of the opt-out areas everywhere in the country are going away. If you want to build, let's say, a dome house using Earthbags, you can go to Cal Earth and they will tell you exactly how to build that building and what the exact composition of the earth inside the bags must be.
Right.
Now, what they did was they've developed these processes and procedures and all the engineering data in California to withstand earthquakes. So there's a lot of ways to go about getting engineering drawings if you're going to build. You can find companies that sell post and beam plans that have engineered drawings that go with it. Now, engineering drawings are not cheap. I think the least expensive I've seen has been about $2,000 for a fairly modest post and beam building. But that's because they have to do snow load calculations, wind load calculations, and all those things. And then they need to show their work, and they have a responsibility if something goes wrong with that building.
There are things available at reasonable prices.
An awful lot of what you need to be concerned about within your own area is what kind of materials are available, what kind of resources available for construction, what your own resources for construction are. You can always trade money for labor most places. It can be really, really backbreaking work to build an earthbag building that is of any size. They get to be relatively tall unless you just choose to put a roof on it. That's not earthbag. But when you do that, you have to have engineering drawings for most of the United States. Not every place. It's like anything else. There are things you can get away with. Now the question is, do you want to really get away with it? Because that may mean you can't sell your property later on. And I do mean you may not be able to sell your property because the county, the city, the state even can decide that the techniques that you used are dangerous and they just condemn the building.
It's not uncommon to have rules change. I mean, when that house was built, it was safe. 40 years later, it wasn't safe.
There's some very specific building codes that are adopted throughout the United States. There's the International Building Code, which specifies how things are to be built, what kind of materials you need to use, the inspections that have to occur. A lot of local groups or counties will choose to use the International Building Code or the National Building Code because it's a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper for them to administer it. Now, what this means is you're going to have things that make no sense where you live because there are solutions for problems you don't have. You know, get over it. It's just another thing about building. It's like, do you need to have graded wood? Yeah. Can you build without graded wood? Yeah. What can you build? That's all spelled out in the codes.
Right.
Well, I hope this was interesting and provides a little bit of food for thought.
Right.
There's a lot of things to consider, especially if you're going to go off-grid. Sometimes it's hard to get people to come help with your construction. It's hard to get people to come repair things. And more importantly, as time goes on and more things change, you have to be prepared to make your place adapt some to the area.
Right. We recommend that when you go to an area, well, the recommendation I got from Shelter Institute, when you are going to build in a town, or you think you want to build in a town, drive around that town. He said, if you look at that town and everybody there has got white houses with green shutters, and you want to come in and build a modernistic, crazy thing with wings and flying this and that and the other thing, they are going to hate your guts because you are going to screw up the ambiance of their town. Make sure you understand what each type of construction can do for you. I think most of us get the concept of stick built, but you need to understand wood and how it flexes and what it's good for and what MDF is good for and all that kind of stuff. If you are going to use straw bales are not structural.
We can keep on talking about all kinds of different building
Read
techniques.
books. There are some very, very good books out there on straw bale, on earthbag construction. I would say go watch videos on YouTube, but
be careful.
I took a class, okay? I took a very serious class. It was lots of hours, you know, no tests, because it's on you as to whether you learn the material or not. And that's one of the problems, you know, there's no certification that makes you a legal builder for that kind of stuff. But I had previous experience. You had previous experience. And between that and the class, we were comfortable with it. And we're building it for ourselves, so we want it to last forever, literally.
So you know what?
But make sure you know your stuff. Some places, rock is even a really good option.
So you know what?
Yeah, we probably should go.
Say goodbye, Irene.
So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because
we're going to be doing lots of stuff.
Yeah, we got lots going on. We're working. We were cleaning up today and putting some stuff away in the greenhouse and sorting through junk and getting rid of junk, and yeah. So there'll be more junk going on. Yes. And more planting in the greenhouse soon too. I need to plant some more seeds.
Goodbye, Irene.
So until next time, bye.
Keep brainstorming.
Always, always.